From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Honoring our veterans from the battlefield to the farm.
I'm Charles Denny. This Veterans Day, we honor our military and now help for veterans who'd like to make a living in agriculture. That story coming up on AgDay.
A message from the farmers of Ukraine.
Hearing directly from farmers that they need this grain deal.
What producers there are telling one of the United States top diplomats. Could another month bring more surprises from a new supply-demand report?
A lot of producers found out that even their later planted corn finished really good, solid test weights.
Will we finally settle on a yield number as harvest rolls to a close? Right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Happening later today, new crop production numbers are due in from USDA. The agency expected to make only modest revisions to its crop production and balance sheets. AgDay's Michelle Rook joins us with a preview. Michelle.
Clinton, the grain markets have continued to move sideways, trying to determine not only crop size, but demand, especially with the slower export pace for corn and wheat. The average trade guesses show just slight increases in ending stocks from October for corn, soybeans, and wheat. However, some private estimates are a little more bearish. Reuters' survey of market analysts has the average trade estimate on corn yield unchanged at 171.9 bushels per acre, with production down 8 million bushels and U.S. ending stocks up 35 million bushels. However, there are some private firms that have decreased demand due to slow exports and others that have increased corn yield based on farmer input.
Me and my team actually upped our yield for the November report by a little less than half a bushel. You know, we talked to a lot of producers, and it sure seems to me that as harvest rolled on, a lot of producers found out that even their later planted corn finished really good, solid test weights.
The average trade guess on soybean yield is again unchanged at 49.8 bushels per acre, with production up just 2 million bushels, but ending stocks up 12 million bushels from October.
I think the bean yield may be fairly close. You know, they made a pretty significant move in the last report.
U.S. wheat ending stocks are pegged at 578 million bushels, up 2 million bushels from last month, but the trade is looking for a nearly 1 million metric ton increase in world stocks. And cotton production is estimated at 13.62 million bales, down 190,000 from last month, with ending stocks down just slightly at 2.73 million bales. We'll have full analysis on Thursday morning's show and right after the report at agweb.com.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Meanwhile, harvest kicks into overdrive. USDA reporting 87% of the corn crop has been harvested. That's 11% ahead of normal. As for soybeans, it's almost wrapped up and 94% harvested, 8% ahead of the 5-year average. Cotton harvest sits at 62%. Winter wheat planting is now at 92% complete. 3/4 of that crop has emerged, and conditions improved slightly this week, even as some farmers planted into dust.
There are some limited signs of improvement with some moisture in a few production areas. Slight improvement in overall U.S. winter wheat condition over the last week, but even with that improvement, just 30% good to excellent. Last week, that number was 28% and 34% very poor to poor, a minuscule improvement from last week's 35%.
Rippey says conditions are still pretty dire in the key production areas. Florida is once again preparing for a possible tropical storm as Nicole gains strength with a possible trek toward Florida's Atlantic coast. Meteorologist Chuck Heaver from AgDay affiliate WNDU joins us with an update.
Well, temperatures continue to remain mild in the east and cooler than average out to the west, but the cold air will migrate across the country this week, and we have Nicole targeting Florida and then subsequently potentially the east coast. The drought monitor shows typical drought for the center part of the country, extreme. And here's a look at your root zone, dry in the center part of the country and out in the Mountain West.
Yields in the Fields on AgDay is brought to you by Micro Essentials from Mosaic, the science of more. Discover our proven products. Text yields to 31313.
Checking those yields in the fields, Linda Lindsay of Mason City, Iowa, sharing this terrific sunset as harvest rolls on. She says corn yields were in the lower 200s for bushels to the acre. And I'll have your full forecast coming up.
U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Linda Thomas Greenfield traveled this week to Ukraine, speaking directly with farmers there about the UN brokered grain deal. She did that during a visit to a grain facility in Kyiv. Thomas Greenfield saying in remarks after her tour that farmers in the country are under pressure but are also desperate, adding they need the confidence of the market to plant. Now, she called the visit extraordinarily enlightening after visiting what's called the breadbasket of Europe and seeing wheat being delivered, processed and produced into flour.
Hearing directly from farmers that they need this grain deal that the Secretary General has been so committed to negotiating. They need this deal to give confidence to the farmers to plant their wheat. So again, this just shows how important this grain is, but it also is showing the impact that this unjust war started by Russia is having on the world's markets.
The grain deal is due to expire this month, and there are fears Russia, which already suspended its participation in the deal once, will not agree to its renewal. The grain deal helping Ukraine export almost 14.3 million tons of grain so far this season. Now that's down more than 30% from the 20.6 million tons it exported last season. Ukraine has said it could harvest up to 52 million tons of grain this year, which is down from a record 86 million tons back in 2021 because of the loss of land to Russian forces and lower yields. A Tyson Foods executive was arrested over the weekend after police say he was found intoxicated and asleep in someone else's home. Tyson Foods heir and chief financial officer, 32-year-old John R. Tyson, is charged with public intoxication and criminal trespassing. Now, according to the Fayetteville, Arkansas Police Department, officers received a call early Sunday from a woman who returned home to find a man she didn't know sleeping in her bed. When officers arrived, they say they tried to wake Tyson, but said his movements were sluggish and uncoordinated. Now, Tyson apologized in a company-wide memo, saying his behavior was inconsistent with his and the company's values. Tyson is a great-grandson of the company's founder and son of Chairman John H. Tyson.
Win the Furrow programming on Ag Day is brought to you by In-Furrow leader FMC. Visit your FMC retailer or infurrow.ag.fmc.com to learn more.
Your harvest efficiency begins in the furrow. A smart selection and planning can pay off big as that crop is ready to come out of the field.
A couple of things we want to keep in mind whenever we're choosing whether it's corn hybrids or soybean varieties is yield stability. I mean, we want to choose genetics that we know are proven and will work well on our soils, on our farms, in our area. So that's number one. The second thing we want to think about is our harvest window and how we're going to spread that out or manage our harvest window. If we're farming a couple hundred acres and it takes us a short amount of time to get harvest done, we're not as worried about it. But if harvest is going to stretch on for a month, we got to start to think about, are we going to choose a couple different ranges, early, middle, and full season maturities to manage that harvest window. So all our crop isn't ready at the same time and we've got beans popping out of the pods or corn losing standability and starting to go down.
Corn markets continue to be under pressure as harvest rolls in. We'll talk price expectations coming up next. And later, we're off to Tennessee to see how a program is helping veterans stay on the farm and honoring their sacrifice in the country. Corn futures fell to their lowest levels in over 5 weeks. Michelle Rook is back with more on what may happen today after the latest supply-demand report is released. It's this morning's Markets Now.
Joining us with market analysis is Garrett Toy. And Garrett, just about a down day in everything on Tuesday and heading into the WSDA report here. Not a lot of change expected, but yet lean and bearish going in.
It sure is. It seems like the focus has shifted strongly to the demand side of the equation. Even if you just look at the trade estimates, there's very little change in the corn and soybean yields for tomorrow, but everyone's expecting a carryout increase. Well, that means that we're not going to change supply, we're going to change demand, and demand is expected to be cut, especially in exports and corn. So the market's solely focused on the demand side, and we're trying to find some demand. Now, we potentially saw some of that yesterday with those flash sales in soybeans with the lower market and the weaker cash markets that we've seen with the river improving. But no, the report today should largely be focused on demand side, export cuts, and the fact that this is a rationing market and the market's potentially doing its job.
How long do we trade the report? Because we've got fallout from the elections, we have CPI on Thursday, so will the focus quickly change?
I think it probably will. We usually do. This market's been in a downtrend into this report for the first time of all the crop reports that we've had this year since we've had production numbers. So the market's in a downtrend here, which is kind of counter-seasonal. We never really had a seasonal break during harvest. And now that harvest is over, we're starting to back off here a little bit. So I think we have a lot of macro influences, CPI, the impact of a potential change in the House of Representatives and what that could impact on renewable diesel demand and renewable energy focuses.
Yeah, the corn market already looks technically weak, doesn't it?
It is, but it's also nearing technical support. This is the first close we've had below 670, and you've got the 200-day moving average only about 4 cents under the market at around 663. So some fairly good support down in those levels, and I suspect that we'll see some decent buying and end user pricing.
All right, we've been pretty sideways in all the grains, so hopefully we'll hold the bottom end of all these ranges. Thanks so much for joining us, Garrett Toy. That's market analysis. More Ag Day coming up.
To contact Garrett, call him at 888-745-2020 or find him at agtradertalk.com.
Now through November 22nd, Willowwood glufosinate 280SL starting at $59.84 per gallon when you pay with cash. Visit fbn.com/direct. Price is subject to change. Terms and conditions apply.
Meteorologist Chuck Heaver joining us here, taking a look at our national forecast. And Chuck, as we talk about the big story in weather today, it sounds like Nicole and some late season tropical system coming up the East Coast.
Yeah, the East Coast of Florida is targeted first, and then we have the cold front marching across the nation. That's going to absorb that, and it looks like kick it up the East Coast. So let's take a look at your forecast. Well, let's go up in the upper atmosphere and take a look at the jet stream map. That gives us an idea of where all the energy will be. We have a ridge on the East Coast, and we have a trough on the West Coast, and that trough has cool, damp air, and that's going to slowly march its way across the country. And between the divider line, we're going to have a cold front, a pretty robust cold front that's going to make big changes. Down to the south, you can see the Nicole activity pushing into Florida and then quickly absorbed into that cold front on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It's scheduled to move up the East Coast. So we'll see how that unfolds. But right now, then we go more zonal, but it's going to be more cool throughout the nation. Here's a look at the future radar. You can see Nicole, the activity pushing onto the Florida panhandle, and then once that does so, it looks like on Wednesday and into Thursday, then it quickly gets swept up in this cold front, and then that total energy gets pushed then up the East Coast. Here's a look at the wind gust forecast associated with the tropical activity. Basically from Fort Lauderdale all the way to Jacksonville, either hurricane warnings or tropical storm warnings are in place, and that's going to impact the coast. You can see anything in purple, 40, 50, 60, anticipating potentially a Category 1 storm there. Then that slowly starts to work its way up to the north. There's the cold front out to the east, and that's going to then combine on the East Coast and push its way up. The precipitation estimates show that. So temperatures this afternoon, not bad. We got 64 degrees up in Minneapolis, but overall mild, really mild for this time of the year. When you wake up on Thursday morning, looks like a 30 in Chicago, so a lot chillier air, and then that's going to change, especially as the week moves along. All that cold air is going to slowly start to slide its way off to the east. Let's go local, Rivertown, Wyoming. You look at rain and snow, a high of 46 degrees. Senatoba, Mississippi, sunshine 78, and Bawaback, Minnesota, a high of 50 with rain.
Another food company faces cyber attack. We'll have details coming up next. And later, a program helping veterans stay on the farm as we honor our heroes today in the country. A cyber attack on the ag industry again, this time a Canadian packaged meats company. Maple Leaf Foods confirming it was experiencing a system outage it says was linked to a cybersecurity incident. The company says it took immediate action, adding a team of information systems people and third-party experts are working to investigate and resolve the issue. But it says full resolution will take time, and it says it will result in some operation and service disruptions. The company is known for its chilled and frozen pork products. You can read more about cybersecurity and protecting your farm in the October issue of Farm Journal or by searching cybersecurity on agweb.com. U.S. pork exports topped year-ago totals for the second consecutive month in September. The U.S. Meat Export Federation reporting pork exports reached more than 222,000 metric tons. That's up 1% from a year ago. Meanwhile, export values increased 9% to just under $665 million. That's the highest since June of last year. Now, through September, pork exports are 13% below a year ago at 1.94 million metric tons. Mexico led pork exports in September. A new study says African swine fever can live in feed and feed additives for at least a year. In the published study, the stability of the virus was monitored in complete feed, soybean meal, and ground corn cob particles. After contamination, the feed was stored at 3 temperatures: cool, ambient, and hot storage. The feed samples were tested for a year, and researchers say the virus remained stable. The research was conducted by the Swine Health Information Center and funded in part by pork checkoff dollars. Up next, a program honoring American veterans. How Tennessee Extension is supporting our farmer heroes and helping them stay in agriculture in the country.
Farmer to Farmer, the Conservation at Work video series features real stories, real successes, real quick. See what's possible at farmers.gov/conservation. Now through November 22nd, Willowwood Glypho 6 starting at $33.49 per gallon when you pay with cash. Visit fbn.com/direct. Prices subject to change. Terms and conditions apply.
Friday is Veterans Day, and an important program at the University of Tennessee is helping make sure our wounded warriors can still earn a living in agriculture. As Charles Denny reports, they help veterans find the equipment and sometimes the emotional support they need to keep farming.
Giving assistive technology a test drive, a lift that helps someone on and off a tractor. U.S. Army veteran Mark Bowen did a tour in the Middle East and suffered a back injury in his service. But today, he's a farmer in Loudoun County, working with UT Extension's Tennessee AgriAbility program to continue farming despite any physical limitations. AgriAbility is also one of the founders of the Farmer Veteran Coalition of Tennessee, where Bowen serves on the national board.
And as we grew, it became more and more difficult on me physically. And so we were able to work with AgriAbility that helped us out to purchase a skid steer that allowed us to clean out our cow barn. One of the things I can't do because of my back injury is a lot of shoveling.
Bowen, FVC, and AgriAbility were part of this Resource Assistive Technology Fair, partnering with the Department of Human Services and the Star Center. There were demonstrations of some of the latest machinery to help people with different abilities, including farmers. This automatic gate opener as an example. AgriAbility has worked with dozens of veteran farmers, and leaders say it's a good fit of military past and agriculture.
It is. A lot of the same qualities and attributes that make people good soldiers make them good farmers. You know, hard work, dedication, commitment.
Eileen Legault with Tennessee AgriAbility praises veterans for their service and encourages them to consider agriculture after the military.
And the veterans we have met that want to farm, their skill set from the military, it works with farming. It transitions well. They are their own boss, and that is one thing that they definitely like.
Some veterans have injuries you can't necessarily see, and many are reluctant to ask for help. But that's a role Tennessee AgriAbility wants to fill, serving as a guide to a fulfilling post-military life.
Once they see that we have tools that can help them farm and make their life easier and help them to do tasks, they're more receptive to us helping them.
As we recognize Veterans Day, know the farmer down the road may have once served our country in another capacity, and that's thinking that continues after hanging up a uniform.
You know, your time in the military may be over or winding down, but you still want to serve your country and your local communities, and another way to do that is through agriculture.
This is Charles Denny reporting.
All right, thanks, Charles. Tennessee AgRability has worked with more than 2,000 farmers since the program started in the 90s. That's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Thanks for watching.